I can't control God.
It's a risk you take, you know?
I can't control the wind or God. So then
5 seconds before.
then I will call out the tour director. But I'm just saying that if the wind blows, there's nothing I can do about that. I can't control God. Talk to him.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Body Serve. I'm Jonathan.
I'm James.
This is our first episode with Madison Keys being a slam champion.
Well, second.
That's true. Well, since the why do you have to go ruin it? I trust everybody knew what I meant. Of course, tennis doesn't stop. Even as the players were working their way through championship weekend, some were already planning their travel to get to the next tournament. Katerina Siniakova was one, flew across the globe to lose in the first round of singles. Taylor Townsend did so as well, losing 11-1 in her first match after winning doubles with Siniakova. The tour just doesn't stop, and so this past week we had 3 tournaments across both tours as well as Davis Cup.
In Linz, Katerina Alexandrova won her 5th career title, beating Diana Yastremska in the final. Yastremska gets some points back after she lost a bunch, not being able to match last year's Australian Open finish, back in the top 50. Alexandrova had been the runner-up in Linz twice before, so this was her 3rd final there. And in this final, she was up 6-2, 3-love, and then lost the next 9 games. She, of course, went on to win 7-5 in the 3rd on her 5th match point.
A tournament that she's twice lost in the final. Came close again to having the same result, but was able to right the ship in the 3rd set. Earlier in this tournament, a round prior, she beat the number 1 seed Karolina Muchova in quite easy fashion. Alexandrova now has 5 titles, while Muchova is still stuck on how many?
1.
You knew that?
Yeah.
In what world does that seem like it makes sense? Muchova has played 6 finals, winning just the 1. It's not like she hasn't played top talent in those finals. 4 of those losses, 2 have come to Coco Gauff, both on hard courts, 1 against Zheng Qinwen on clay, and then also losing to Iga Swiatek, obviously, in the French Open final, 2023. So yeah, that's a loss in a final, but that's one of the biggest finals you can lose. I bring this up because I've seen a lot of people diss Karolina Muchova for this statistic, having only 1 title, as if to say she's overhyped, as if to say she's not worth all that conversation. Certainly we've contributed to that. We're big fans of Karolina. I would like to see this remedied quickly.
Yeah, this was a really good opportunity, but it wasn't to be.
In Singapore, Elisa Mertens beat Ann Lee, who you picked to break out some years ago.
Well, better late than never.
I guess I'll always bring that up. Every time her name comes up on this show, I keep saying that.
Is that the only thing you know about her? Is that why?
And so you're flipping it on to me now,
exactly.
And I'm not going to indulge you in that dark-sidedness. The WTA is back in Singapore for the first time since 1994 as a tour event. Of course, the year-end finals were there for quite a few years, from 2014 to 2018. This is Elisa Mertens' 9th singles title. Of course, we know she's much decorated on the double circuit.
On the men's side, of course, there were Davis Cup qualifiers going on, and also the tournament in Montpellier, indoor, Felix's wheelhouse, and he wins his 7th title, beating Kovacevic in the final.
He's now 7-10 in ATP finals. For a young guy, 17 finals is a lot. It's just that he's kind of a indoor bully at this point.
Mm-hmm. Didn't he lose his first 7 or 8 finals?
He was definitely
that's why there's so many.
The Monfils trajectory for a while.
Mm-hmm.
His 2nd of the year, if you recall, he won in Adelaide. Felix had match points in the 2nd set, but Mr. Kovacevic was able to push that to a 3rd. Big result for Kovacevic. I watched him partner Tyra Grant at the US Open in mixed doubles when they were playing Lerner Tien and Clervy Ngunnaway. And I don't know if you remember, but on the show, after that match was done, I was walking through the crowds and Alex was leaving, and there were a lot of women who were very into him.
Oh, really?
Vocally into him. He was very popular. He had a rough stretch at the end of last year, carrying over into this year. And so to have this run to a final of a decently sized tournament in singles, no less, it shows that he's got the goods. Also taking out Andrei Rublev in straight sets in the semifinals.
Yep. And the defending champion, Bublik, he rejoins the top 100 at number 75, very close to his career high of 72. Felix, he's great on indoor surfaces, but this final was still not a foregone conclusion. He had match points in the second set tiebreak, but Kovacevic managed to push it to a third. At that point, Felix faced the single break point of the match. Happened at a very pivotal moment at 5-all in the third set. And that was that. Went to another tiebreak and Felix won.
What makes him difficult on this surface and these conditions is his serve. If Felix is serving well indoors, that gives him a big leg up on most players on the ATP right now. What's your prediction for Felix the rest of the year now that he has 2 titles? Don't make a face like that.
2 titles.
Yeah, he has 2 titles.
Yes, that's my prediction.
He's played... Oh, wow.
2 of 2.
Oh, I thought you were saying he will have finished the year with only 2 titles.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So you have zero expectations for Felix.
I just am not really putting my eggs in that basket. Surprise me.
Fast forward to Wimbledon when it's surprise, surprise.
Okay, I'll gladly eat my words if he wins Wimbledon.
Davis Cup was something that we all together wanted to ignore.
I mean, it wasn't even like want. I just didn't really know that it was happening.
Okay, but if you knew it were happening, you would have wanted to ignore it. Guarantee. I know you.
Yeah, it wasn't really something I was looking for. There were a few interesting moments from this past week.
What had happened was your boo Christian Garin got beat up by Sisu Bergs, and now you're invested in what happened at Davis Cup.
This was so weird. I've never seen anything like this. This is the Belgium-Chile tie. Bergs has just gone up 6-5 in the deciding set, and he's pumped up, he's running over to his chair, he's looking at the team on the sidelines, and smashes directly into Garin's face and shoulder.
He kind of jumps into him.
Yeah. Garin plops down immediately, falls over.
The match was not over.
No.
Maybe Bergs was buoyed by having just broken Garin. So he was about to serve for the match. So that accounts for the excitement, I guess.
Whatever. So Garin is on the ground, gets back up, goes to his chair, gets examined by a quote-unquote neutral doctor who says that he is fit to continue the match. Now, he says he's not fit to continue. His eyes messed up, and he claims to have lost consciousness for a few seconds when he fell down. In the meantime, supervisor... Guess who the supervisor was, by the way?
Well, I know, because I've read the agenda. Right. Somebody who seems to find himself in a lot of controversial situations. Somebody who is so ethical, the most ethical tennis official that's ever lived.
And in this case, he opted for peace, love, and understanding. And he said, well, it wasn't intentional, obviously. And the doctor said Christian can continue playing, so we're going to get going. And Garin sat in his seat, refused to rejoin the match, gets a warning, point penalty, game penalty, match is over.
You still didn't say who the official was.
Oh, I didn't?
No.
Oh, it was Carlos Ramos.
The Chilean team said that they've received no apologies and no one has checked in on Bibi Garin.
Yeah, Zizou apologized when it happened, but that was such a cluster that I don't know what the hell. I think it was best that he moved away from the situation while Christian dealt with it. But afterward, the Chilean team and Nicolas Massu, the captain, said that nobody asked how Christian was and they didn't get an apology. Now you have Zizou Bergs' father on social media saying, listen to what Carlos Ramos said. This is the truth. Zizou didn't do it on purpose. Don't listen to fake news. Okay, again, not an apology. I always wonder, what does this mean, you didn't do it on purpose? Did Denis Shapovalov aim a ball at the umpire's eye? Does that make him less culpable? It doesn't matter, guys. He still decided to jump up recklessly and he slammed into his opponent. It really doesn't matter what you did on purpose.
It matters intent only so far as the police is involved. If Denis Shapovalov took aim and intended to nearly blind the umpire, then he should go to jail. Then his intent becomes important. But in tennis, people are often trying to behave as if there aren't certain sets of rules that govern the sport, that exist outside of intent.
Well, and if you want those enforced, you're soft, you're a homo, you're like...
Not a homo.
Oh, yeah. No, that was light compared to what I saw on Elon Musk's app.
Oh, you're still there?
Occasionally.
The bottom line is intent doesn't matter. So where does this leave us in terms of this being an enforceable, actionable situation?
Right. I mean,
it boils down to interpretation yet again, right? It becomes a matter of what do the officials deem suitable for this scenario.
Like, the fact that Carlos adjudicated this is hilarious to me, because somebody who's known for being really firm and fierce, that's what we were lectured about when that whole thing happened in 2018. But now he wanted to approach this with understanding.
People can change. People can grow.
This is great. This is a default to me. It's actually, I was dumbfounded that there was even a discussion about this. It didn't happen in the course of play. He wasn't like running toward a ball. The thing is, it wasn't an accident. And we can talk about what does an accident mean. The fact is, he chose to do this. The fact that Christian was there in his way was bad luck. But it's not like somebody pushed him.
Well, part of not intending to do something, the twin excuse that comes with it is that he couldn't help himself. He just got caught up in the moment. And so therefore, meanwhile, Garin is ass over tea kettle
right
on the floor, feels like he's seriously injured. At a very minimum, he's stunned, shook. He doesn't know what's going on. Like, that's not a reasonable expectation for him in this match. How are we going to stand there, sit there, watch from afar and say, oh, you need to just suck it up, when this person did this to him?
Like, oh, I was just walking back to my chair and now I have a black eye and my ass is on the ground.
The reasonable expectation is that players cross paths. Maybe one makes way for the other to let the other one go to their chair while they wait and then go to their chair. It's something that happens tens of times in the course of a match. The reasonable expectation is that you act like a civilized human being. Like, this is behavior that should be so physically ingrained in you that it is muscle memory.
See, this is why I don't like Davis Cup.
This is why I don't like team sports. This is why I don't like the frattiness of these team events. Because these men act a fool. And then we are here left with having to talk about, again, ad nauseum, about intent. Can we just not?
Right, because it's a straw man. Nobody said that he did it on purpose, that he wanted to injure. Well, maybe a few people did. But that wasn't really the prevailing sentiment. Was that should be a default regardless of whether that person meant to do it, because it was so reckless and you endangered somebody. And if you hurt them and they were incapable of playing at their peak level, that's your fault. And you've unfairly changed the dynamics of a match, right? So that it should be over.
What if Garin said, okay, I'll continue, and then he's walking around and it's clear that he's imbalanced, that you can see that he's not where he should be, and the only reason why that is the case is because this dude jumped into his face and hit him in his face.
Well, he was examined by the doctor, and there was a long layoff. Masu says that the doctor was not, in fact, neutral, and that they may appeal still. The other thing is, I wonder where this leaves us as far as the status of code violations and defaults on the ATP Tour. Andrei Rublev was famously defaulted last year in Dubai, and typically the punishment for being defaulted is that you lose all of your ranking points and all of the prize money that you would have accumulated in that tournament. Now, the ATP came back upon appeal and said, well, we actually felt that that was a disproportionate
sanction, penalty.
Right. And said, no, he can keep all his points and all of his prize money from Dubai, even though he was defaulted from the match. Now, where does this leave umpires? And I feel since then, and, before then as well, but are umpires, sort of out to sea as far as when they're supposed to be giving defaults? Or what's the sort of thing that rises to the level of a code? For example, Alex Mickelson last year in Winston-Salem, he hits a ball in frustration and it hits a spectator. What I was taught that was a default no matter what. That was automatic. So he was not defaulted. Why? No idea. Similar thing happened at Roland Garros last year. Terence Adman hit a spectator with a ball and received a warning. But if that person had flopped, let's say you hit the person with the ball and they fell on the ground and screamed, you'd be defaulted immediately. So what is the difference?
The point is that there's no equal handling of these situations. There's none.
I think umpires don't know what to do. And I don't know if they're getting some sort of guidance in the background that we don't know about. But, if you're an umpire, defaulting someone is a very drastic step. And I'm sure no umpire wants to do it. But if you do it and you stick your neck out, and then the ATP comes back a few weeks later and says, no, actually, we don't agree with that. Where does that leave you? Were you supposed to do that? Were you supposed to follow the rules? Or is the ATP sort of rewriting the rule book for you?
I do not have an answer for that.
Right. It's just something to think about. Because, of course, similar incidents where Miyu Kato was defaulted from a slam for very innocently hitting a ball back to a ball kid. It hit the ball kid. It was an accident, of course. She was defaulted immediately. Novak Djokovic, we won't dive into that again. But the fam could have reason to be a little bit miffed that he was defaulted and these other people weren't. So I think umpires don't really know what the standard is at this point.
That wasn't the only incident in Davis Cup. The descendant, he was back at it again.
Yeah, this was the Brazil-France tie. Thiago Seibold-Vilj and Arthur Fils. At the end of the match, Vilj aggressively grabbed Fils' arm during the quote-unquote handshake and pulled him.
They went to do the clasping handshake thing, and the descendant aggressively pulled him in toward him and then wagged his finger in his face and told him off about something. We don't know exactly what, but presumably it's about some horrible calls that went against Thiago in that final set. Mm-hmm. And he took it out on Fils because allegedly Fils should have known what was what.
So right before that, the umpire had ruled that Vilj touched a shot from Fils that was clearly going long. That gave Fils 6-1, 5-4, and he served out the match. It was very fresh when they came up to the net, and Vilj did that. That man doing violence? I'm shocked. You don't say. Considering the other things we allegedly know about him. Shocking. Fils exercised a lot of restraint there. Because if anyone ever grabbed my arm and jerked it toward them and then started lecturing me, no.
Certainly not while wearing that mustache. Certainly not.
That should be another sanction, in my opinion. Put them all in jail. In Transylvania, one of my breakout picks, I actually can't remember if I picked her this year, Marina Stakusic from Canada, has beaten 2 Romanians, including Sorana Cirstea, just today. So there's some good news.
Doesn't she have some questionable follows on Instagram? And I'm not talking about Cirstea.
Now that you mention it, I had totally forgotten about this. Yeah, well, that's tennis, folks. Careful who you stand.
It's already on the record.
Nobody's safe.
You already picked her at the start of the year to break out.
Oh, my picks are very often jinxes, as you know.
Mikael Ymer, he's back. If you recall, he fell victim to the whereabouts stipulations from WADA, from ITIA, and was banned. He subsequently retired. And then at some point last year, he said, hold up, I'm bored. It's not that fun to be retired as a young 20-something, I guess. And he said, see you in 8 months. Well, here he is.
Which one of us hasn't quit out of frustration? He was suspended for 18 months. He didn't even appeal. And last April, he tweeted, retirement was boring. See you in 8 months. And he rose to the occasion. He is back.
Winning an ITF title in Luxembourg. 2 players are going to be coming and going this year. One is coming back and one is leaving. Mm-hmm. Coming back is
Petra Kvitova.
Squawker in chief.
Wow, that's not very nice. She's coming back from maternity leave.
It is part of her resume. It is something that she is very much known for.
That's true.
One of the most beloved players on tour. She's had many, many, many ups and downs in her tennis career and personal life. She's coming back to tour from maternity leave, and she'll be back at the ATX Open this month.
Yeah, really soon. I wasn't prepared for that. She gave birth last summer to a baby with her husband and coach Yuri Vanek. She said, hey, I'm coming back, and it's going to be really soon. Austin, Texas. That's the tournament that Madison Keys got turfed from.
We'll get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Petra is a 2-time slam winner, twice at Wimbledon. She made the final in Australia, where Naomi beat her. Her last big title, do you know what that was?
Miami.
Yes.
Which was probably the year before she went on mat leave, right?
Against all odds, really.
Mm-hmm.
That was only a few months before she left the tour.
Yeah, that's right. She beat Rybakina in that final. Rybakina was also the runner-up last year to a surprise winner in Danielle Collins. Rybakina has just announced a new coach. Davide Sanguinetti, the former ATP player from Italy, is joining the team.
Because if you recall, Ivanisevic quit. Vukov is banned, pending investigation.
But possibly hovering around the team, not in an official capacity.
This is about Petra. Petra is back. I'll be happy to see her back on court. Lots of our listeners, I'm sure, will be very pleased by this news. I'm going to be honest here and say that I have not always enjoyed watching Petra Kvitova play, especially when it came to playing my faves.
Yeah, because she always managed to get up for Venus and Serena.
Mm-hmm. And also, let me not say.
What?
Like when she's playing your fave, when your fave is losing and she gets all riled up and...
Yeah, that's why the squawking bothers you.
Yes.
I know. Yeah. But she and Venus played a classic at Wimbledon in 2013. Venus beat her on her run to the final in 2017. That was a beautiful thing to watch. Petra, probably the best player never to be ranked number 1.
Career high number 2. She's a month away from turning 35. We shall see. Leaving the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who this is?
I do. Vasek Pospisil, the Canadian from British Columbia. He announced that this will be his last year. He wasn't specific about when, though, right?
He didn't say when, but it became timely for him because one of his biggest claims to fame is representing Canada in Davis Cup, and this past weekend was the final time he'd be representing Canada. And so he held that bit of news close to himself, and once Canada lost, then he made it public.
He has put together quite the diverse resume, right? Davis Cup champion in 2022.
Lackey.
I'm getting there. Wimbledon doubles champ 2014, I want to say, with Jack Sock. The co-president or vice president of the PTPA, one of the founding members. A maple syrup magnate. That's how you say that, right? Magnate?
Magnate.
It's not magnate, is it?
It is.
Okay.
Which would separate it from a magnet that attracts.
You know, there's a thing called homonyms. Homophones.
Yes.
Homophones.
Mm-hmm. There.
You're saying that's not one of them?
No.
Okay.
As far as I
Anyway.
know, a shipping magnet, or as opposed to a shipping magnate. It's a very slight, subtle difference. As far as I know.
You said basically the same thing.
I did not.
Mogul. How about that?
Sure.
Because I know there's only one way.
A maple mogul. A maple magnet or maple magnate?
Right. I don't know.
Okay. Is that the name of the episode?
I'm sure there will be someone to correct us.
Is that the name of the episode? Maple magnet?
Well, actually, it's not either of those, James. It's a secret third thing.
Once upon a time, I would have been moved by this news. That's about a decade ago.
Oh,
for me now.
Vasek?
Yeah.
I mean, he has definitely done a lot for Canadian tennis. That's for sure.
Dasha Kasatkina.
Okay, this is a weird one. Her name was listed with the Spanish flag next to it for the Abu Dhabi draw ceremony. A number of people were speculating, is Dasha moving to Spain? Like, is she getting Spanish citizenship? Is she renouncing her Russian citizenship? We know that she has lived there. She's trained there for many years. I guess her permanent address is Dubai, but she speaks Spanish. She frequently films in Spain with Sonia Tartakova with her own YouTube thing. It wouldn't have been super surprising if Dasha did become a Spanish citizen, but that is not the case. It did not happen.
She hasn't been to Russia in 2.5 years. Since then, she's come out publicly and criticized the war in Ukraine, both illegal activities for a Russian living in Russia.
Since she came out, a number of Russian officials have implied that she's no longer welcome in her home country. I don't know if she plans to go back. I don't know if it's safe for her to go back, but she's been living abroad for years at this point. But the fact that the Spanish flag appeared next to her name...
It sounded like you were going to say, but he's gay. Excuse me, I'm sorry, he's blind. One of the very best news bloopers that has ever existed.
I always think about that. Every time I say, but...
That's exactly what you were giving just now.
Right after the break, we're going to interview Eric Weihenmayer, who climbed the highest mountain in the world, Mount Everest. But he's gay. He's blind. So we'll hear about that coming up.
Okay, as we head to the break, a look at the 6 o'clock.
This guy climbed Mount Everest, but he's gay. Excuse me, I'm sorry, he's blind. Which is what made it noteworthy. I guess gay people can climb mountains too.
Like, what was the but about? Anyway, her management said that this was a mistake, and it could be, quote, potentially quite harmful to her for people to think that she has gotten Spanish citizenship. They said, we can categorically deny she is switching to Spain.
I wanted to add one more thing on the Madison Keys win at the Australian Open, and then we'll segue into what you mentioned previously about her not being able to play Dallas as she had regularly scheduled for herself. The thing about Madi that sticks with me is that she never went away. I feel like there were many times over the last decade where we, as in you and I, or we, the collective tennis viewing public, may have given up on her as a slam champion, or have maybe thought of her as being way lower ranked than she actually was. When in fact, Madison's ranking has stayed pretty steady for the last decade. The lowest her ranking has fallen year-end since 2015 was number 56 in 2021. Otherwise, she's been top 25 every single year at the end of the year since 2015. On top of that, she's had a top ranking by year no lower than 16. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Granted, she matched her career high ranking of number 7 by winning the Australian Open. While she was there or thereabouts, she never really made a huge breakthrough in the rankings. But she was always there. And I don't think she's gotten enough credit for doing that. Because we've seen so many players who, okay, they're top 20 players, but they have multiple stretches where, be it through injury or a stretch of poor play, they're barely inside the top 100 for maybe a year, and then they come back, or they fall out of the top 100 and quickly come back. That never happened to Madison, despite everything that she went through over the last decade.
Yeah, there have been many times doing the show where I'm like, what? Madison Keys is ranked 12? You know, I felt like, oh, I hadn't really heard much from her in a while. I wonder what she's been up to. Like, well, winning a lot of matches, apparently. And even in those years that you felt like maybe she was in the wilderness, 2021, then she comes back and wins Adelaide at the very beginning of 2022.
I did not know that our title for the last episode had yet another meaning built in. The title of the episode was truly Madi Deeply, which for people of our age, I'm pretty sure it's Savage Garden that comes to mind.
Yes.
That's where I was going with that one. But it's been pointed out to me as well that there was also a film, a romance fantasy film in 1990 called Truly Madly Deeply. And that starred Alan Rickman.
I am not familiar with that film.
We may have to... it has a 76 on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.2 on IMDb. It might be worth a watch.
And when I was editing the episode, I was like, oh, did you know Savage Garden is from Australia? And you were like, yeah, that's kind of why... why the title worked. And like, okay, well, another layer.
Madison Keys planned to play the Dallas Open. Madison Keys planned to play Austin, the same tournament that Petra Kvitova is coming back at. However, by function of winning the Australian Open, she returned to the WTA top 10. And as such, she is ineligible to compete at that tournament because a 250 can only feature one top 10 player. And Jessie Pegula already fit that criteria.
Yeah, this is a newish rule. And I didn't realize that's how it was going to work. Like if somebody joined the top 10 after already entering the tournament, what would happen? Mm-hmm. Well, I guess now we know.
A lot of people are mad about this. I am not.
I mean, I get why they're mad, but also it's a 250 in February.
Right, but the premise of it is to make the field more egalitarian.
Yes.
To kind of streamline where the top players play so that they're not vulturing. Do you remember all those years?
Oh, yeah.
The majority of this podcast, people will be out here complaining about how so-and-so is vulturing this stretch of tournaments.
Yeah.
Casper Ruud is vulturing the clay tournaments while the Olympics is going on. Who was the main WTA vulture that people used to complain about? I feel like people complained about Elisa as well.
Probably. I mean, she has 9 titles.
Yeah.
And they're mostly at that 250 level. I understand the rule. It's trying to make more room for more people to play these level of tournaments. From the tournament's perspective, is it going to be harder to attract audiences when you can only have one top 10 player?
From a tournament perspective, you have one of the few stateside events.
Yeah.
A new event, relatively new event, and you were previously able to advertise and sell 2 of the top American women.
Mm.
And then to be able to say, hey, the Australian Open champion is coming to town, come see her, that would have been a big boon to the tournament.
Right.
Now they can't do that. Instead, in Texas, it's oil state. We've got the fracker's daughter. Come see her.
I think that's a movie, actually.
Is that the title? The fracker's daughter.
I guess we'll find out. If you'd like to be banned from whatever the stadium's called in Orchard Park, New York, where the Bills play.
I am in no danger of stepping foot near that facility unless Beyonce or some artist of
she's not
similar interest to me is going to be playing an outdoor concert there.
She won't be.
We talked about this on our rap episode, but we didn't get the full story out because more has since developed. The woman who protested that guy at the men's final, she has since been giving interviews to multiple people. She did stuff with the Tennis Podcast. She has given an interview to Ben Rothenberg and Bounces. And 2 things come to mind from reading her words. Brave. Right? Like, this was impeccable work. Important, impeccable, brave work. And secondly, Craig Tiley remains slithering, slimy scum. Is that the title of the episode?
No, that's gross.
Tiley going on radio stations and talking about how she ruined it for everyone. That incident last night, that incident it ruined this for everyone. It certainly did not. I guarantee you it did not. It may have brought you, Craig Tiley, unwanted attention to your event. It certainly brought unwanted attention to that guy in that moment. If anything was ruined, it was that guy's moment. But it was already ruined. He lost. He did that to himself.
Right. But it added a little bit of humiliation to the loss, right? And that guy said in his press conference, well, she's the only person in that stadium who believes that. Well, have I got a bridge to sell you? Because that is like Delulu to the max. A lot of people believe it.
It's also a reminder when it comes to protesters, and specifically for tennis. Do you remember when the protester glued themselves to the stadium in Arthur? It was Arthur Ashe, right?
Yeah.
And then we're told, oh, no, that's not the right way to protest. Guaranteed, at every single show of protest at a sporting event, somebody is going to say, that is not the right way to do it. And so you're dealing with people who really don't believe in protest. Protest is meant to make you uncomfortable. It's meant to disrupt. It's meant to bring attention to something that is important.
It's messy. It's often ugly. May make you feel a little bit icky.
Mm-hmm.
But
in fact, this was one of the best and most apt times to do this protest. It hurt no one except the person who deserves it.
It got maximum attention in a way that broadcasters couldn't possibly censor.
Mm-hmm. It didn't disrupt the tournament because the tournament was already done. Play was not disrupted. Spoiler, when she was corralled by the Popo after this incident, they were like, you got to leave, but you can't come back tomorrow.
Right. You have to be gone for 24 hours. You've been trespassed. Okay. But the cops were probably like, she did what? She yelled something? Oh, okay. In Australia at a sporting event, somebody yelled something? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. We'll send her to prison.
These tennis tournaments don't want you to wear T-shirts with something on it. Mm-hmm. Do you remember when, in Australia as well, these peaceful protesters who are just silent protesters, actually, who are just wearing T-shirts, I forget what the issue was at the time that they were protesting, but they were told that they had to take the shirts off or leave.
Yes.
That's wild.
Yes.
If you were to be told that, okay, somebody's going to make a protest in a slam final, you'd feel that, oh my God, like this is going to be crazy. It's going to be so high stakes. This could be such a disruption. In the end, it was nothing of the sort. We are being lied to. We're being gaslit by people who don't want to address the issues at hand, who want to continue to cloak and cover for this guy.
Yeah, can we also just go back? I obviously don't know Australian law, but why was security detaining her until the police came? Is that allowed? I mean, it wouldn't be allowed here. First of all, they're not cops. So I could just leave. You cannot detain me for no reason if you're just a regular old civilian. Just tell me to leave, and I'll leave. I have not committed a criminal offense. What was the criminal offense? Yelling?
Okay, but you know that when you buy a ticket, you agree to certain conditions.
Right,
There's
but those don't supersede your civil rights.
It also doesn't necessarily make their detention in that moment illegal. I'm sure there's a legal gray area there.
I don't know. Well, again, I don't live in Australia. I don't know. But that was kind of alarming to me.
The US Open, following in the footsteps of the French Open, the Australian Open this year, they will now begin their tournament on a Sunday. The manspread continues. The dilution of smaller events continues. the encroachment of the slams onto everything in tennis. The greed continues.
The dilution of your own event.
Right?
The interminable first round spread over 3 days.
I can't recall the back end of a tournament feeling so thin as it did at Australia this year.
Right. At the US Open, the first 3 days will be first rounds, and then the rest of the tournament will proceed as it always does. One more day to sell record tickets. Of course, it's a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't you? But the value will continue to feel worse for spectators.
You can sell 7,000 to 10,000 more honeydeuces at $24 a pop.
Yeah.
That's a minimum.
Wimbledon is the only slam that takes place over 14 days. And a reminder that until very recently, they did it in 13 with rain delays all the time.
Because the second Sunday they didn't play.
Exactly.
First Sunday.
Middle
Sunday, yeah.
Well, it is the first Sunday, but it's the middle of the tournament.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We've talked about this a lot from having gone to the US Open the last few years, that the largesse of these biggest tournaments, it's grotesque, quite frankly. Every time I've been there, I've felt disgusted. It's felt seedy. It felt unsafe.
Yeah.
Whenever the tournament is advertising, 75,000 people today, the most ever. I know what it felt like to be on the grounds.
There are definitely ways to manage that crowd much better than they're currently doing. One of the ways is scramble as much as you possibly can to fill up Arthur Ashe all day. Make sure that the schedule in Arthur Ashe doesn't finish super early. Bring matches into Armstrong, whatever you need to do, because record crowds look great on TV. They sound great, but they make for a very unpleasant experience in person.
Okay, but my point in saying this is that it's never enough. It's never going to be enough. They tell us last year it was the biggest, best ever. They will never be content with that.
No.
You can't just replicate last year. You have to make it better. It's what Craig Tiley is trying to do every year with the Australian Open. Tell us ad nauseum just how much this is the player's favorite slam, and then show us the ways that this slam is better than the others specifically for the players.
Because Roger Federer said it one time.
The US Open is given permission to do this Sunday start because the other two have. What the others have done and have shown that they can make a little bit more coin, the others will follow. They'll continue to push the envelope. They'll continue to subsume the sport.
Well, we already have 2-week Masters. Can you believe that we're going into an August where Canada and Cincinnati are going to be expanded and the US Open is going to be a day longer? There's no room for anything else.
It's the last month of summer. Like, people want to
I
be
don't
at
have
the
time
beach.
for that.
Thank you again to everyone who contributed to our GoFundMe this year. A reminder that if you donated $100 or more, get in touch with your address if you'd like this year's postcard as well as our new bookmarks.
The GoFundMe is now closed. Thank you so much for listening to us for these past few months and for contributing.
This brings us to the end of episode 371. We're hopefully going to have a mailbag episode next. Is that right? What do you think?
Next, yes, probably, just not sure on what day.
I didn't ask you what day.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we have questions stored up.
My name is Jonathan. You can find me on Blue Sky at Tennis John.
And I'm James at ElliotJMR.
2 L's, 2 T's. Everything BodyServe related can be found at linktree.com/thebodyserve. Thanks for listening.
Till next time.
Thank you very much.